Hey guys, it's Sabina. I just wanted to come on here today. I had written a poem about, right after probably I had that incident with the fire, and I actually had posted it on here. But when I posted it, I never really explained it, and I just felt in my spirit and in my heart like I was supposed to read it again and then talk a little bit about it. And there was a few things that I wanted to just talk about today that I actually wrote down that I was thinking about. Part of my testimony after, I got saved, and, just all the things that I had to walk through. I had said, I relapsed 3 times, 3 major times. And the last time was in 2013. But I want to just talk a little bit about that, because I really think that, honestly, it might encourage some people that, they fall and they're just kicking themselves while they're down. And that's the worst thing you could ever do. If you fall, you get back up. That's it. In whatever capacity, whatever you've fallen in, there's a difference between condemnation and conviction. And we should be convicted, right? We don't want to think it's okay to do certain things. But if you condemn yourself, or you allow the enemy to condemn you, then you're not going to get back up. And that's kind of what happened to me. Because I was great. I encountered the maker of the universe, and now I'm down. I've fallen. I was ashamed. I didn't want to tell anybody, obviously. I was been going to all these church groups. I've been praying. I've been doing all this stuff. And here I am again, and I'm wow, I'm just I'm a tumor. That's how this poem, it's called Tumor. It was I'm the enemy of myself. I'm just a cancer, So, okay, I'm going to read it. And if you've heard it before, will you hear it again? Okay. me. No, I'm joking. All right, there's a tumor growing deep down in my soul, pleading with me for full control. There's a fire burning beyond within, suffocating me in all my sin. There's a revolution brewing beneath and between all I have ever known and seen. At times my life feels like a dream. At times my life is not what it seems. There's a rabbit hole I'm falling through, transforming all I ever knew. There's an emptiness that fades to black, and I'm not sure how I'll get back. At times my life feels like a dream. At times my life is not what it seems. Pressure squeezes the essence of me. It's dark inside. I cannot see. Banging my head against all I can find, waiting for a definitive sign. There's a rebellion draped in uncertainty. It's constantly opposing and oppressing me. There's a heart that once pounded on purpose. Now I live inside this circus. But I'm the only clown in here, and I'm the one I have to fear. At times my life feels like a dream. At times my life is not what it seems. Self is worse than any enemy. It's what quietly tries to deceive me. I must break away from who I am and get back up and try again. I must hold true to what is real, allow myself to heal and feel. I must arrest the attacker in my head, forgive all the things I did and said. I must raise the banner and attempt to make peace. I must once and for all kill this beast. At times my life feels like a dream. At times my life is not what it seems. Boy, that poem. It means the world to me. So basically, I think in the last video of the testimony, I mentioned briefly that, how I had relapsed. But I wanted to rewind a little bit. When I first got out, and I was started really reading the Bible, serving the Lord, telling everybody about Jesus, and they were either running away from me or it was amazing. I felt even when I first got out, I didn't smoke cigarettes anymore. Nothing. I felt so clean to the point where it was actually made me very uncomfortable, because you have to think I had been on something since I was 12 years old. You know what I mean? So it was the presence of God, and now I understand that. And it was this peace and this cleanliness and this just beautiful, but this was messed up. And I remember right away, not right away, but yeah, a couple weeks, I was smoking cigarettes again. And then it was just, I was good for a little while. So, I started writing letters. I had briefly mentioned in my testimony how, the old man that I lived with, he was he was like a pops to me. I used to cry. This is the guy that I burned his house, set it on fire. I loved this man, but when I say I loved him, and I will always thank God, I feel like he was an angel in disguise, even though he didn't live a life that was, he had a drug thing going on there, but he was just so genuine, and he had been through so much in his life, and I would cry to him, and he loved me. It was the only love I think I had ever really known at that point in my life. And when I went to go get my stuff, because everything was destroyed, all my clothes, all my memory box that I had all these beautiful, I had a lot of crazy stuff in there. Like, I wish I could see the diary, like, entries. I even, like, wrote the first time I tripped on acid. Anyway, that's not the beautiful part, but I'm just saying, like, I wrote so much as a kid, and I had to go there, and he wouldn't even look at me, and I was all fired up, and I'm like, Jesus is real, and he loves you, I'm so sorry, he kept mumbling under his breath, crazy, choice word, girl, crazy girl, and he wouldn't talk to me, and that killed me. And I was just like, I didn't even care anymore that if he thought, I get it, I understand, I'm not like out of touch with reality, I understand if that happened, you would say that, and whatever I could salvage. I was grateful that I had bins that were in like a separate compartment that had all my pictures. So I do have I took a million pictures. I have pictures of everyone and everything from early on in life. I was like the picture girl. So, and those were saved, but like everything else was just, the whole apartment was ash. It was just, and so I went home and I wrote a letter. This was a few weeks later, and I signed it. I told him all about Jesus, about salvation, about the mercy of God. And then I didn't sign it my name, but I signed it, just an angel, and I always ask God, like, I wonder if he ever got it. Years later, I had a dream, and in the dream he had died, and he was in heaven, and he had all these children around him. And then I happened to look it up, and I saw he died in 2018, I believe. So I believe that God, that there's a scripture like God, God is an enemy to our enemies and a friend to our friends. So even people that may have not been, I believe even on your dying deathbed, like, God can reveal himself. And I used to pray for him all the time. And I wish, we could have had like a connection afterwards, but I understand why not, obviously. So I was on like letter, right? And I just said, I'm going to write my dad a letter, right? So I haven't talked to my dad in years. And I spent probably days writing this letter. It was long, and it was my whole life story. It was everything I've been through, kind of like the stuff I'm telling you. But basically, like, it was my way, I guess, of making amends, like, so, like, I wanted to make sure I had forgiveness in my heart. Because, like, people can say, oh, you don't have, like, I really, by the end of that letter, I wept. I really realized that I forgive this man could not give me what he did not have. And even though I've been, I don't know, what was like 26, 27 when I did this, maybe 26, maybe, he couldn't, like, but I needed to know in my own heart that, like, okay, he's released, I wrote him this long letter in response. I got a letter back. I didn't even get a letter. I got a card, and it said, hope you're having a great day, love, and it said his name, his wife's name, his daughter's name, and his stepson's name. That was it. I bore my soul to him, and I was just like, whoa. And then, like I said, like, he was supposedly like a Christian, whatever, I don't know what happened to him, but maybe like a couple months later, my mom gets a letter from him. Now this is a side note, like a sidetrack a little bit, I do that sometimes, and he wrote her the most horrible, vile letter. I mean, called her like a big nose whore. The kicker is, and I know people that are beyond heathens that would never do this, he signed it, Jesus Christ, love Jesus Christ. I mean, it was vile. And I was just like, whoa. And I was just like, this guy's got some serious demons he's got to work out. Because obviously, like, he was the one. I had to make sure. See, the thing is, like, even if someone else, make sure your heart is pure. If your heart is right and it's pure, and it doesn't mean, like, I always say forgiveness is in layers. So, like, think of an onion, right? You may think you forgave somebody, right? And then all of a sudden you see them, or all of a sudden the wound. I was actually telling someone this last night, right? Beautiful soul. Like, but you have a cut, right? And then if it scabs up, it gets itchy, right? And then you pick it what happens? It starts to bleed, right? So being in contact with my dad, it made it start to bleed again, because if it would have just scabbed up and then the scab fell off, and it would just be like these, it would just be scar. And I guess like that really hurt, like, and to be in my 20s and to still be feeling like a little girl and being hurt by my dad. And some other videos, I'll tell you what happened the last time around. That was just, I was done. I released him. I was like, we're okay. Like, you don't ever have to talk to me again. But like that constant, like, all I ever wanted was my dad's love. I was always chasing for love, but he couldn't give it to me. And that's where like for Father's Day, I'll let you in a little secret. Every Father's Day, ever since I came to know God, I mail God a letter. I get balloons and I write whatever's going on in my life. I thank him for everything that's happened. Some years have been crazier than others, and I release it. And this year I did the same thing. And there's something so, like, I wonder sometimes, like, if people find the letters, like, maybe they'll believe in God too. And like, I just send it because God is my Father. He's the best Father. He's your eternal Father. If he's your Father, like, he will protect you, lead you, guide you, provide for you. And you know, he loves you. And the thing is, it's hard to understand the love of God when you never had a father's love. It really is. Because even at my age, I find myself getting, you know, insecure, like, with God's love sometimes. It's been very hard. It's taken years. I mean, years, like, 14 years, like, to really understand, especially in the beginning. Like, it was either I thought he was like a hard taskmaster, and like right away he was going to turn on me, he was going to betray me, he wasn't going to come through for me, right? Because I never had, you know, a father's love. So I was thinking that if you had parents that really loved you and they were there for you, not perfect, nobody's perfect, but it's easier to understand the love of God, you know, even though God's love is so much more grand than a human's love. But that was like, you know, that's something that, like, it was a real struggle for me. And so yeah, so all right, so I went on a tangent again. So not really, kind of all intertwined. But so I wrote, you know, that old man a letter. I wrote my dad a letter. I even wrote a letter to the guy that did all that bad stuff to me, that to this day wishes me dead. I wrote him a letter telling him I forgave him. Actually, it was an email, I think. And I wrote all about the gospel. And, like, he already knows, because he's, like, chose to go the opposite way. He wants to worship the devil. He wants to do about black magic and witchcraft and all that stuff. So that's, he chose, you know. We can choose. Like, people think nobody goes to hell. We choose life or death. We have a choice. So, but yeah, I even wrote him, which is like, when I tell you what happened before I moved out of New York, I mean, it didn't stop there. You know, he still was trying to hurt me. He was still trying to, he told me he was going to kill me. He said, you're dead, like, right before I left. So, you know, like, those demons have him good. But I'm just saying, like, you know, and I'm not recommending, because, you know, like, when you do 12 steps, like, make amends. Don't make amends with people, or try to. People that will hurt you or put you in danger or harm's way. You know, I don't know. I'm a different breed with certain things. But I felt like I had to write that email. And, you know, but I'm not, you know, recommending that, you know, for everybody. But, yeah, so, like, that was it. I was writing letters. I was writing poetry. I was, you know, my neighbor, like, I started playing the keyboard. My neighbor, out of nowhere, I guess she heard me playing in my room, and she knocked on the door one day, and she's like, I have a piano that I want to get rid of. She literally gave me her piano, and that was, like, the first time I had owned a piano, and I was just like, what? And, like, I had, like, 2 people I knew, and they rolled it over across the street, and I started, like, messing around, you know, like, I'm no, like, you know, Beethoven or anything, but, like, you know, I could play by ear a little bit, and it was just, like, it was beautiful. And I just, like I said, my eyes were focused. I was just falling in love with Jesus. I was getting healed, but I was still having really tormenting things happening to me. And that's where I started diving in more into the Word of God. And I didn't understand, like, why I was having such, like, demonic dreams and visitations. Not as much, but a few times. It was, like, crazy. I went back, you know, I was finishing up college, and this is like I'm going to throw this out there. And I had a professor, and I knew she was a witch for sure. Like, it was all over her. But like whatever, like there were certain books that we were reading, like I was very into what some of the books that we were reading in school, and she gave away she's like, come, get all these books. She had like so many books. So I went and I loaded up. I'm like, free books, sweet, I have nothing else I'm doing. I have no social life. I'll be reading, right? And I got all these books, and I didn't think nothing of it. Literally the next like 4 nights until someone came over that was very anointed by God, and I was having straight up demons like attacking me, like straight up attacking me, choking me, trying to sit on me. And I didn't know, I didn't put the core, I didn't think, like I'm saying, like my journey with getting saved, like it's not like the regular stories I hear from other people. I'm like, you guys don't have these things happen, you don't know. And I guess that's like where the call of God is on my life, because I've been in all that stuff. So it's like God has kind of like showed me what's out there. And that's why like every time even people give me stuff, I plead the blood of Jesus over everything, because I had no idea. I'm like, so my mom's friend came over, and she's very anointed, and she came in my room, and she was like looking around, she goes, what are those? And I had like a big stack of books, right? And I was like, there's books. I'm like, what? She's like, no, where'd you get those? And I'm like, from school. She's like, no, who'd you get those from? I was like, my professor. And she's like, throw them out. I was like, what? I'm like, what do you mean throw them out? And she's like, I'm telling you, they're cursed. She's like, they're cursed. And I was like, like what? So I literally threw them out and never had that attack again. Makes you think, right? So I don't know, sometimes that's why anyone that is a believer and you're walking with Christ, plead the blood of Jesus over things, over your house, over objects, over, because you don't know who's creating it, you don't know who's making it, you don't know what they're speaking. Just like there's people that can pray over stuff that they make and say, God, let this bless someone's house. They could be doing the same thing and say, God, let them this curse those people that take this. There's evil, and a lot of people need to wake up and see there's some wicked, and I don't mean that in like, it's serious. This is not a joke, and so yeah, so that was, I don't know how I just got on that, but that was intense. So I am, so things are, whatever. I was doing that. I was doing the school thing, and then my sister, she started dating one of the guys, actually with the guy that I said in the last video, his brother, who the drug dealer that lived around the block from us, that ended up having that seizure, and I prayed over him when I had attempted to go relapse, and he came back to life, like it was a miracle. And then he came to church with me that night, and he like accepted Jesus into his heart, and it was really the most magnificent, powerful moment. But I feel like that's how we should all be living every day if we're followers of Christ. But yeah, so, every day he's like, you good? And I'm like, dude, I don't do that anymore. I'm like, I'm fine. Like, but loneliness, depression, I've always struggled, my whole life, even when I was a little girl. And some people where, we have a more of a disposition to go towards, some people can't, I guess because of how dark I've had, how deep and dark I've been in those pits. Like I have that ability to go really into that depression, and I started sinking quick, and I hadn't really, like, no one really understood. Like, my mom never suffered with stuff like that, she's never been a depressed person ever. If anything, I think that came from my dad. But so it was just like the perfect day. So you know what I mean, like when he asked again, and I got it. And I'll never forget, like, I had a picture of Jesus in my room, and every night I would kiss it, like, really, good night, and I started using probably for like a month, and it was getting like really bad, right? And every night I would kiss the picture, and then one night I heard in my spirit, Judas. I was like, whoa, what? Like, and that, I was like, and just the revelation, I was like, oh my gosh, I thought, like, God delivered me, like I had an encounter with Jesus. And I went back, and like, look, we could look at it and like, oh, people fall, but like, even to this day, to think like, God rescued me not only from drugs and alcohol, but from a life of witchcraft, from people that tried to hurt me really bad, from everything that I've ever been through. Sorry. But, and I was, I instead of running to him, I ran to that, and I ran to all I ever knew, right? My coping mechanism, right? My horrible coping mechanism. And so that got me I was like, I have to, I got to go to rehab. Because what happens is when, anyone that's had addiction, the mental, you get obsessive. When you start obsessing, I knew I just needed I just needed a week. Like, I just needed a week away, to just break the mental addiction in my brain. And I'll get back on track. And sometimes people need a year. Sometimes, listen, all of our journeys is different, right? But I had really awesome insurance because I worked at a school. And I called her. I was perfect because it was the summer. So summer was coming up, and I called, and I went away for, I think it was a month and a half, or maybe it was a month, and I went to rehab, and I went to detox. It was remember I said how God always meets us where we're at when we're His child, even though I was working on myself, right? But it's there's people that are really lost and really don't know the Lord and really don't know anything about God. And I'll even remember my roommate, and she was detoxing. I remember this girl clear as day because it was really sad. She was detoxing, but she was fooling around with one of the girls in the other room, and they were bringing in drugs, and they were asked, so here I am in a detox facility, and she's like, she was offering me Roxy's and Oxys, and I was like, no, man. I'm like, what's the point of this then? I'm like, why are you even doing this? If to me, it was stupid. And I get it. Sometimes you go court mandated, and sometimes you're forced by your family. So if it's not a genuine thing, and I get it, because listen, until you're ready, I had a divine intervention, but until you're ready, I don't care how much you cry to someone, how much you try to plead with them, until the person is really ready to give it up. I've known people that have told me wild stories that one day, I do know a guy who's a raging alcoholic, and then I would pray for him all the time, and then one day he was just sober. I was like, what? How'd you do it? He goes, I was this time. It was ready. And he was a sloppy drunk. And I was like, whoa, she just said I was never ready. And he was 58 years old. And boom, he's been sober for 4 years now. So it's but this girl, so it was so sad because she goes, yeah, I've been here a few times with my mom. And I was like, what do you mean? So her mom used to get high together. So I started praying for her, and here I am, I'm withdrawing, I'm going through it, and I'm praying for this girl. And it's just I know these are wild stories. It's just when I think man, God is just so amazing. That's all I could say, because we God looks at the heart. We judge people, and we don't. God can use it. He could use it. If He could use a donkey in the Bible to, He can use anyone and anything at any time. So that was the beginning, and I'm getting into, because I want to tell you what happened in this rehab, because it was freaking amazing. It was when I say I still remember yeah. So after this a couple days, I went in there, and I just kept to myself. I was writing or whatever, and I had an awesome roommate. We had little apartments on this property. It was a really nice rehab, Florida. So I always end up in Florida. And they would have a choice, whether you wanted to go. And I had never been to a Celebrate Recovery, so I'm a big Celebrate Recovery fan, big time. So you could go to, and there's nothing wrong with AA and NA. I'm just saying that, I was yeah. I was what's Celebrate Recovery? He's oh, it's at a church over, whatever. So I started going there, and I was the only one. No, there was one other person that I think went, but everyone else went to AA and NA. So I was all right. So I went there because you have to go every night to meetings. So I would go there. So I one night, a few of my friends, they said, all right, we'll try it. Because I was yeah, why don't you try it? I wanted them to encounter that, and, they worship, and I thought that would be really awesome. So they came, and there was a guest speaker there, right? So there was this old pastor guy, and he was that night, I used to struggle really bad with suicidal thoughts. I mean, my whole life, and that's definitely a familiar spirit that's tried to plague me most of my life, right? So I was just like obsessing. Like I was in the back of the church and I was just like, I just want to die. You know, when you have those fantasies like about drive, not that everyone knows this, but like you're driving and you just want to let go of the wheel. And like, I was just like, you know, I wish I would just die. Not that I wanted to kill myself, but I just did not want it. I was just wanted to die. You know, that was, you know, been there many times before. And so the man goes, this is what got my attention. He goes, there's someone here. No, first he was praying over people and they were falling out. Like, you ever see, like, you know, like being slain in the spirit? So I was like, I'm like, that's a bunch of, you know, malarkey. Like, I never believed in a lot of things. Like, I was a believer. I was, saved, but I didn't believe in all that. I always thought it was a bunch of, and you know what? Remember this. In order for there to be the real deal, there's a counterfeit, right? So if there's a counterfeit, there's a real deal. So there are a lot of places and a lot of churches and a lot of things that are fake. They are. Let's just be real. Or they're under demonic spirits and they're not genuine. And we'll get into these kind of videos later on because I have a lot of knowledge that I've obtained over the years from things that I've seen, you know. But you can't, the devil he can't create. He can only pervert and distort and counterfeit. That's what it is. So here I am in this church and I'm just kind of mocking because like I've always had that kind of like cynical sarcasm. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, that ain't real. So he goes, someone here right now is thinking about dying and they have a spirit of suicide. So I'm like, whoa, what? So, you know, that got my attention. He goes, come up here. He goes, it's one person. And I was like, that's me. And I knew I had to go up there. So I said to my friends, I was like, I'm going up there. I was like, but I don't fall. I'm like, that ain't happening to me. So when I got up there, I was kind of not rude to the pastor, but a little bit. I was like, don't touch me. Because I didn't want someone, you know, you see those videos and someone's pushing them down and you're like, ah. And like, I'm like, no, don't you touch me. Because I always want the real thing. And I'm assuming everyone else listening, you want to know if it's real, right? So I was like, I was like, I don't fall. Like, that's not happening to me. All this man said was, in the name of Jesus, I command that spirit of suicide to loose you right now. I don't even remember the right now part. And the next thing you know, I woke up on the floor. When I not woke up like I don't even remember. I can't express to you. Like, I just fell out. And it was the most beautiful. I felt like liquid warmth, love was just like, it was just all over my body. Like, it was just like liquid love. That's the only way I could describe it. It was like, I felt so loved. I felt so warm. It was the most, that's only happened to me once, by the way, because like, I don't know, it's never happened to me before again. That was the one time. And I almost feel like, and as I go on in stories, I'm just telling you my journey. You know what I mean? Because I always ask God, even about other things. I'm like, is this real? Like, I'm like, okay, like in his word, you can see certain things, like about, like if you read the book of Acts and like the things that happen. But like, I don't want to ever be deceived again. I was deceived by a lunatic for years, you know. I want, you know, and if you ask God, that's why I always say at the end of my videos, ask God if he's real. Ask him to reveal himself. He's not sitting there like playing head games. Like, if you want to know if God's real, he's going to show up. I promise you. So here I am now. Like, I was like, whoa. So tell me how powerful this is. I get up. All my friends saw that. And they must have seen, I'd love to see how it would have looked like. You know, I don't know how it looked from their perspective. They rushed up to the altar and they gave their life to Christ. People that would never come to a church, ever. They'd never even been in a church. One guy, he was like a major crackhead. And the music came on at the end, he started dancing. They were just so happy. I wish I could remember his name so many years ago. But I remember him dancing. We get out of the church. We walk out. Tell me, there was a rainbow over the church. I'm not joking. God is my witness. A rainbow. These are like awesome, like God moments. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are a lot of amazing moments that I literally could probably make 1 million videos on just like God moments. And like, how honored and I am, like, that God would just show up like that, but it wasn't just for me. He used me as a catalyst, and now here are these 5 or 6 people giving their life to Christ, and then we walk out and we're all in the van like, what? Like, there's a rainbow. Like, did this all just happen? Because, especially when you've been getting high your whole life and you're, like, used to seeing that, crazy things are going on, you never get, like, you're like, whoa, did that just happen? Well, now you're in the Spirit of God. God is, like, the master artist, the master everything, Like I said, there's no high like the Most High, for real. Like, God is amazing. We can't put him in a box. He can reveal himself however way he wants. He's God. And, like, that's what I've realized. Like, so maybe everyone's story, maybe God just opened your eyes, and, like, that's cool too. Like, hello, if you have a revelation you didn't believe and now you know that God is real, don't ever think, well, because certain, like, most people don't have the things that happened to me, especially with the, when I had that encounter with the devil and then encounter with God and the fight. Like, that's not a normal conversion. That's just apparently, I don't know, God plucking me out, maybe spanking me, like, putting me in my place. I don't know. That just happened to me, though, right? But, like, when you see all these other people being affected, even though, like, it was my, like, God knew this was going to happen, knew I was going to relapse. He knew that he had a plan at this facility, and it was just awesome. That's all I could say. After that, the last day, because all the time, like, everyone would just be like, you're different, like, and I still, like, we had a big, like, my last day there, we had a big party, like, we rocked out, okay, so, like, I had a lot of the similar taste in music that everybody else did, and we, like, in my little apartment area, like, we, like, had a straight up, like, mosh pit, like, we had a blast, like, we tore it up. So, but then before that party, they all decided to come together, and we needed 3 vans. They're like, Sabina, we're gonna go to your thing tonight instead of ours. Do you know how beautiful that was? I'm a girl that's never really felt loved, or, I've never really felt like anything. And to think that these people that I didn't even know, I knew them for a month, that I had an influence on their lives to the point where I had always said, come on, come to church, come to church with me, come on, man, like, like, no pressure but pressure, kind of, like, just please, just once, and I had hit up pretty much everybody there, right? Because I had such a wild encounter, especially that, but even before I had that happened with it, being slain in the Spirit. So the last day, they all came on, and they had to call another bus to come, or van to come, and they all piled in, and everybody went to church, and, like, a lot of people went up and accepted Christ that night. So, I don't know. That's a cool story to me. I felt like sharing that with you guys, because I know I say a lot of sad stuff, and there is a lot of sad stuff. It is what it is. I've had a lot of really sad stuff happen. Even in the happy moments, it's been sad, But I wanted to share that with you guys today. Let me see. Yeah, because I thought that was a really cool, like, if you've fallen and you've messed up, even if it's, like I said, in any department of your life, God is the God of restoration. He's the God that restores. You know what I mean? He promises to restore. You just got to give it time. You got to give him a chance. And, like, especially when you're trying to start a new life, you're going to be like, it's not all smooth sailing, So, yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys, and I hope that touched somebody. And as far as, like, with the father thing, and, like, in the next video, I want to tell you about my last relapse, because then I'm going to tell you about how my ex-boyfriend came back into my life, one of the ones that, the one that really nursed me back to health and was really good to me, and how that story transpired, because that's a powerful testimony in itself. And that was, yeah, like, I love him. Like, I miss him. He's no longer with us, Lewis, but I got to see I got to see a brand new Lewis for a little while, and I got to see him really fall in love with Jesus, which was really cool and amazing, But I know the struggle is real, And I back to the father thing, like, you know, everybody, especially around Father's Day, like I just, all the young people I talk to, you know, from either 16 to like their 20s, I know a lot of young people, you know, and it's just like everybody has a father fracture. All these girls that literally just, you know, they're so insecure, they just sell themselves short, they settle for whoever, or, you know, they feel worthless inside, no matter how tough they are, because, like, let's be real, like, we're not gonna, like, usually wear our heart on our sleeves, even though some of us do, but, you know, that just not knowing you're that, you know, that unconditional love, you know, and your father, like, is supposed to pursue you, and you're sitting there begging for his love. And, you know, there is a day that every father is accountable, because everybody's going to stand before God one day, whether they like it or not. Even if they don't believe it, it's going to happen, and they're going to give an account, because children are a blessing. They are, you know, they're on loan to you. So if God gave you a kid and you didn't do right by them, it doesn't mean perfection, but if you know, hurt them, abuse them, abandon them, and, you know, you never made do and repented and asked for forgiveness and tried to, you know, you're accountable, because then you're hurting someone else, and now they got to go through all this stuff. You know, I look at it like even my own niece, like what her father has done to her. I mean, gosh, he left her in an airport when she was 8 years old because she said that she reminded him of her mother. You want to talk about rejection and abandonment issues? Like, she's been through so much with her dad. I could go do a million videos, and thank God she has an amazing stepdad. Like, he's like loved her. Like, oh, I love him. Like, I'm so grateful, you know. So if you're even a stepdad, a step-parent, like, what a beautiful, like, gift, like, to have a really good step-parent that actually cares and can love you. And, like, if you're a kid and you're giving your step-parent some crap, like, go easy on them, especially if they're trying to love you. I know they're not your biological, but sometimes you don't even need your biological, you know what I mean? I mean, that's the way, the order it should be, right? But you need love, and a father is such an important role. I wish I could shake up a whole bunch of guys that I know. Like, get it together, dude. Like, you're messing up your kids' lives, and then they procreate, and then they got abandonment issues and rejection issues, and now, you know, not everybody runs to drugs or alcohol or sex, you know. It could just be low self-esteem. It could just be self-hatred. It could be, you know, and thank God that he is such a lover, and he is so awesome that, like, you know, if you struggle with any of that stuff, you know, eating disorders, whatever it is, like cutting yourself, you know, burning yourself, starving, whatever. There's so many things you could do to yourself, even just like overachievers, perfectionists, right? OCDs, like, what, you know, it's like you can come to God and say, you know, please, Lord, like, reveal yourself to me. Be my father, you know, because, you know, people always say that thing, and I gotta, you know, clarify this is what I believe. Remember, everything I say is my opinion, what I believe to be true, you know? But, like, you know, God, like, he, you know, he created, God so loved the world. So he created everyone, right? But not everybody is God's child. He loves all. We are his creation. But when we come into fellowship with him, right, he adopts us as his own. He buys us back. He takes us in as his own, you know. But he loves all people. He wishes for all to come to repentance. He wishes for all to, it doesn't matter. I don't care what your story is. There is no story that God's going to be like, well, that is, I can't. That's too hardcore. No, there really isn't. Like, he knows every single thing about you, and he's in love with you because you're his creation, but he gives us free will. And that's another thing that I couldn't understand for a really long time. And I brought this up in the past videos, but, like, free will, right? He did not want robots. He wanted us to choose to love him, right? Would you want someone to love you because you're forcing them to love you? No. But he'll spend all of your life, he'll pursue you. He'll, you know, send people in your life. He'll give you signs. He'll, you know, up until your very last breath. And I've seen it in my own life. When looking back, I've seen it in other people's lives. I've seen it like a million times over. And, you know, we can accept that beautiful gift, but we have to choose, you know. And all the things we think we know about God, we really don't. Like, I was so deceived. Like, I had no, like, he's awesome. For real. For real. But you gotta, like I say, you gotta find out for yourself. So, alright, I'm gonna leave it at that. Listen, if you're going through it today, especially if you're struggling with that father fracture, I get it. And I'm praying for anyone that I'm praying over this video and every video that whoever ever listens to it. I'm just doing this because, like I said, I got a story to tell. I got a lot of stories to tell. And whoever stumbles upon here, I believe that that's meant to be. And I believe that it's going to minister to somebody. And I am praying for everyone's eyes to be opened to how magnificent and awesome God is. And that He really does love you, despite what you hear in society, despite the messages that you've heard, despite the hypocrisy or the false, and then I'm telling you, I'm going to make a video of just straight up insanity that I've seen in churches since I've been saved. Because it's not to be disrespectful, but it's to make people aware and to wake up to see what really goes on out there and the deception and how people can get sucked into lies. Because that's why you got to know the Word of God. You got to know His Word, so you can't, if you see something's off, you're like, hey, wait a minute, that's not what God's about. People give God a bad rep. It's the truth. So, all right, that's all I got for you tonight or today, and I hope you have a blessed day and a blessed week.